Often when we talk about safety, we talk about personal safety. What I want to discuss today is another incredibly important aspect of safety, and that's process safety. Now, process safety is fundamentally about keeping the oil and gas inside the pipes. It's critically important because it's through process safety and all the elements of process safety that we ensure ourselves that the big catastrophic incidents do not happen. So this is absolutely critical to Santos. It's critical to the way we run our operations. I'd very much like you to engage in the discussion in the video that's going to follow about thinking about absolutely about process safety and how it impacts you and the contribution you can make. This applies not just to staff who are working in production operations. It applies to how we design wells, it applies to how we design projects, it applies to how we drill wells, it applies to how we operate plant and how we operate pipelines. So we're all involved in this. So please listen and learn and then act upon it. And thank you very much.
Every day, Santos operations across the world produce an enormous amount of energy. For example, our Cooper Basin wells produce enough crude oil in one day to meet the transport energy needs of your family for thousands of years. Our Western Australia and Northern Territory business unit produces enough gas in one day to meet the household energy needs of your family for more than 1,000 years. There's sufficient ethane in the Sydney ethane gas pipeline at any one time to make enough plastic cling wrap to stretch to the moon and back 19 times. And we're well on our way to building one of the first LNG plants on Australia's eastern seaboard. With all this gas and oil running through our flow lines, compressor stations and production facilities each day at high pressures, you can imagine the amount of energy stored in all that plant. So how do we control this energy? The answer is with process safety. Process safety is a crucial part of doing business to ensure our assets are designed, operated and maintained to the highest safety standards. Process safety refers to the prevention and mitigation of a loss of containment of hydrocarbon that could otherwise lead to a major catastrophic event. As they say, it's all about keeping it in the pipe. Generally speaking, process safety incidents are low-frequency events. That is, they don't happen every day. However, they are generally of high consequence, as we've seen with major fires and explosions around the world. As you'd be aware, our Environment, Health and Safety Management Standards, or EHSMSs, are the basis for the way we work in Santos. It should go without saying that whether you're an employee or a contractor, these standards are non-negotiable. Process safety requirements are integrated across the EHSMS, most particularly focused around EHSMSs 9, 11 and 12, which outline the keys to achieving high performance in process safety. For example, EHSMS 9, Hazard Identification, Risk Assessment and Control, outlines what we must do to mitigate the risk of an incident from energy stored in hydrocarbon, including undertaking hazard studies during the life of a plant. However, it's the 11 series, Operations Integrity, that really forms the basis for taking a project such as a new compressor station or recommissioned equipment from the ground up, right through to the time it's decommissioned. So how do we apply EHSMS 11 during the life of that plant? Well, in the first instance, it helps to think of EHSMS 11 as a number of controls, usually portrayed as slices of cheese, solid barriers to preventing an incident. We'll look at these barriers step by step. Firstly, EHSMS 11.2, Facilities Design and Construction, which requires that our facilities are designed and built to Santos, Australian and international standards. How can we then be confident that the plant has been built to specification prior to the introduction of process fluids? The answer lies in EHSMS 11.3, Pre-Startup EHS Review, which provides the guidance for a thorough review process by a team of office and field-based people. We want to make sure, among other things, that all equipment has been installed according to the drawings, any non-conformances are rectified, and the system has been cleared of impurities. Of course, we also need operating procedures and safe work practices to make sure there is no release of hydrocarbon during startup, shutdown and routine operations. That's the domain of EHSMS 11.8, operating procedures and safe practices. The permit to work system, for example, comes under this standard. In an ideal world, we now have a plant that will run perfectly, year in, year out. However, as we know, hydrocarbons contain impurities such as moisture, CO2, H2S and sand, all of which cause erosion and corrosion, threatening the capability of plant to perform according to the original design. Enter EHSMS 11.5, Mechanical Integrity. This standard is about undertaking regular inspections and checks of equipment such as pressure vessels, pipelines, compressors, tanks and process piping, according to Documented Integrity Management Plans or IMPs. Inspection routines are not just restricted to plant. EHSMS 11.7, Critical Protection Systems, provides the guidance for implementing rigorous testing programs for equipment designed to control or detect hydrocarbons in an emergency. And we're talking anything from burner management to fixed gas and flame detectors and ESDs. Over and above the testing and inspection regimes, Santos maintains a routine maintenance schedule. Robust reliability and maintenance practices are a core requirement to sustainably delivering process safety. And these are outlined in EHSMS 11.9 Maintenance. For example, inspections and preventative maintenance on reciprocating equipment, electrical equipment and so on. To this point, the standards have generally been about preventing or controlling the release of hydrocarbons. Should there be an unexpected release, of course, an ignition source is the last thing we want around plant. EHSMS 11.6 Ignition Control is about restricting and controlling the presence of ignition sources. The obvious ones include welding or grinding. However, there are the less obvious sources such as hot surfaces, sparking equipment or even vehicles. In the extreme case of hydrocarbon release and fire, EHSMS 11.10 deals with fire risk management. An integral part of process safety is also about using the management of change process as outlined in EHSMS 12 to ensure that any proposed alterations to plant or equipment is appropriately documented, reviewed, approved and communicated. There is another key point to make in regard to process safety. That is, everyone has a role to play in reporting any process safety hazards, exceptions or incidents. Just the same way that we place a value on reporting personal safety incidents or near misses to prevent the same thing happening again. As the multitude of catastrophic events in refineries, gas processing plants and offshore platforms testify, there's no room for compromise in a strong process safety model. In every one of those instances, there were precursor events and telltale signs that something was amiss. The controls that should have been in place had become ineffective. If we revisit our cheese model, this breakdown of controls is represented by holes appearing in the layers or barriers. And now we're looking at the serious potential for an incident to happen. So it's a case of questioning and reporting anything you see that looks out of place. A drip or a small leak from a gland on a valve, missing or damaged insulation, worn electrical cable, or work not done to a standard. Even a non-conformance in the permit to work system, reduced cover on a flow line due to a washaway, excessive vibration or an unusual mark on a pipe. To give you an example, in 2010 an operator making valve adjustments noticed a small mark on the Moomba to Sydney sales gas line. That mark traced back to a crack on the pipe, leading to a controlled plant evacuation and subsequent safe major repair work. Some examples of process safety hazards that have been reported include a non-conformance to EHSMS 11.8 operating procedures and safe practices. An audit found that no one on a work party had been nominated to perform gas tests and none had been recorded on the permit. EHSMS 11.5 Mechanical Integrity. External corrosion was identified by an operator on an uncoated and unintentionally buried process line in a satellite location. EHSMS 11.9 Maintenance. A fuel injector line on a generator set worn through, causing a mist of crude fuel on the genset and surrounding bund. So please remember, no matter what job you do and no matter where you work in Santos, You have a responsibility to understand the elements of process safety to keep you, your colleagues and your workplace safe. By questioning something you see that just doesn't add up and reporting it straight away enables action to be taken before the issue escalates into something more serious. And that means not lying awake after a shift, wondering whether you should have said something. If you have any questions relating to process safety or safety in general, please discuss these with your supervisor. Have a conversation about process safety with a colleague or talk to Santos's Principal Process Safety Engineer.